All right, it is 8:05 on the dot, so we're gonna go ahead and get started. I wanted to thank you all so much for joining me on tonight's Winning Women Wednesdays. I'm super excited about doing these, and when Women's History Month was coming back around, and I was like, we definitely got to bring back Winning Women Wednesday. And I wanted to do this a little bit different because I wanted each night or each Wednesday to have a specific topic. And of course, tonight's topic is grace. And I feel like this is a very important topic. And I think a lot of people, I don't want to say overlook the importance of grace, but I think that sometimes grace is kind of forgotten. And we'll get into a little bit about that later. But if you have joined us on the other Winning Women Wednesdays, you know that we've talked about perseverance. And that was last week. And that was an amazing one. And then the first one that we did, I'm trying to pull up my dates to make sure I get it right, because I know we didn't start it on the first Wednesday for a few different reasons. But the first one we did was Hope, and that was on the 8th. So the first one we did was on March 8th, which was the second Wednesday. So we started with Hope. And then after we did Hope, we went to Perseverance. And so tonight we're doing Grace. And each Wednesday, we have some amazing women that are going to come on here and share what these different topics mean to them. And hopefully everybody's able to take something out of it and it can change their life. Last time I had a Nove apparel t-shirt on, of course, all about women empowerment. Tonight I have on Women Are Courageous, because we are. And there's a saying on the back of my shirt, but you really won't be able to read it on the screen. But I wanted to make sure that I am wearing something that empowers women. I see one of our speakers on here. She has on one of our Women That Win shirts. So it's all about women empowerment. Not that we are here bashing men, because that's not what we do. Because we have men joining these Winning Women Wednesdays, supporting us, and they get something out of it. So the whole point is just for us to be able to pour into each other and also be able to share her stories instead of course, it's Women History Month. We're calling it Women HERstory Month. So we're just sharing stories and being able to pour into people. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and get started. I do ask that everybody that is joining us live on Nove Call keep their lines muted, and our speakers will be unmuted. So let's go ahead and get started. Remember that you are able to interact with us. If you have questions, comments, drop them in the comments. I know last time I didn't do too good of a job on Facebook, so I'm going to try to do a better job of going back and forth between Facebook and Nove Call. So with that being said, we have amazing speakers on here for tonight. Hopefully you all have seen the flyer, who you're going to hear from, but we have Miss Kimberly Connor, who is a powerhouse within herself. If I can be honest, Kimberly Connor could have been on the first call dealing with Hope. She could have been on last call dealing with Perseverance. And of course, she's on here for Grace tonight because life hasn't been easy, and she's been able to persevere through a lot of different situations, find hope and keep it going. But of course, she's on here talking to us about grace. And so we are so glad that you joined us. We also have Matrice Vaughn, and she's on here. Yep, I see her. We have Matrice Vaughn on here. This woman within herself, she can tell you her story. You know what? Now that I think about it, I'm pretty sure all of our speakers on here tonight could speak on all the topics that we have spoken on. But Matrice Vaughn is a powerhouse within herself. If you are following me on social media, you see that she is also one of the ones that won the dinner with the COO, because she's out here just killing it, going after her goals, and she's just amazing. So we got her on here tonight. We have Miss Amber, there she is. We have Miss Amber Crew on here. When I tell you, I am super excited to hear from her when we have our open panel discussion at Women That Win in Chicago this weekend. I am so ready for what she's going to bring. And Amber Crew was one that Joe Gathens talked to me about, and he was just saying, she is phenomenal. So I haven't actually got to hear from you, which I'm excited to hear from you tonight. So I get a little bit of taste about what you're going to bring, but you come with many, many recommendations about how amazing you are. So I'm ready for you to bring it and change lives. But I also am excited to hear what you're going to say about grace tonight. I see you making moves out there. So I just want to say congratulations. I see you posting and sharing your information. So amazing woman. So glad that you're on here tonight. And then we also have, let me see, I know Miss Eileen was going to try to make it. Eileen is actually had an emergency come up. So she's not going to be able to make it tonight. I was just checking to see if she's here. She's not here, and that's okay. And that's one thing as a woman, and as a mother, sometimes things pop up and we have to be able to, switch lanes and be able to wear many hats. And so that's what she's having to focus on tonight. So that's okay. We're going to still kill it on tonight's call. She's still here with us in spirit. But we're going to go ahead and get started. And I like to start with the definition of the word. So for tonight, it's grace. And so grace has many definitions. And I think one of the things about grace is a lot of times people only, attach the word grace to something dealing with spiritual or religious, and it goes so much further than that. But of course, grace does start. I am a believer, so of course grace starts with God, but also for those that may not believe in God or whoever your higher power is, grace does start from the top down. So it does start with something spiritually led, but we're going to get into that a little bit later. Is that the only place where it is? But the definition of grace, it says that it's a virtue coming from God. It's an unmerited divine assistance given to humans for their regeneration or sanctification. It also says that it is a special favor. It's a temporary exemption. And the other one that I really, really liked in here, it says that, which we do this, it says it's a short prayer at a meal asking for a blessing or giving thanks. Now, we know that we're not talking about saying your grace before a meal, but I had to throw that one in there because a lot of times we all know, say it's time to eat, say your grace. So that's another definition, but we're not going to talk about that grace. We're going to talk about the other graces. So ladies, I'm going to call you based upon how I see you on my screen. I have Matrice first, then I have Kim, and then I have Amber. And you can unmute yourselves in that order. So can you tell me what grace means to you? So you don't have to go any further than that. Just tell me, because grace is such a topic that is going to lead us into the other ones, and it's going to flow very smoothly. But just tell me, what does grace mean to you, Matrice?
So first, let me say thank you, Miss McCamery, for having us on here. I am honored to be on here, especially with Miss Kim and Miss Amber crew. And we hope, what's her name? Because I just forgot.
Eileen.
Eileen. I hope she, take care of her business. Like I said in the group chat, we have to figure it out, as moms. So shout out to Eileen, because I really admire her as well. And for grace, to me, just the journey that I'm in right now is how I handle things now. Even when somebody is not giving me grace, or I feel like they did something wrong to me, how I handle it, to me, is grace. How I handle that person. So we know that grace it means all types of things, but depending on where you're at in life, it could mean something different. And for me, it's just how I handle things now as a woman, even as a mom. I was thinking this morning, like, I wish I can do a few things over with my kids, because I was a teenage mom, and just doing things differently. Yeah, I would say, just handling things with grace is something that I'm going through right now. And I just feel like it's a big part of my growth, because how you handle things is how God blesses you. That's how I feel.
I think that was perfectly said. Kim, what do you think? What does grace mean to you?
Awesome. And once again, I have to give it back to you, Mrs. McCamery. Going through this and having to be in the forefront, it really is making me dig deep. Like, I seriously have to dig deep. So when I research grace, it really means about the movement and your movement. It's like the duck that's in the water, how they look so graceful up above the water, but then down below, those feet are just like kicking. So you really can't judge a book by its cover. It's pretty much how you deal and how you treat others. So I really live by the motto, treat others as you would want to be treated. So with me, that is grace. And of course, blessings is what resonated with me. Blessings, you bless your food. So blessings, and just walking through life gracefully, not mad, not sad. Of course, we go through a lot of things, but you just giving grace to God, just being thankful and grateful is what I got from it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, Miss Crew, what you got?
Hey, y'all.
Hey.
First, thank you, Ms. McCambry, for allowing me just to be on this platform. I was excited throughout the weeks, just listening to everybody and just their stories. It's just been powerful and uplifting. I heard there was a whole bunch of tears and things going on last week, but that's okay. We can do that. For me, Patrice actually kind of like is where I am mentally when it comes to grace. Not handling things the way I would have previously. And that's tough, but learning to handle things in a better way, right? Once upon a time, I had a little bit of attitude problem, learning how when people respond to me with things to respond in a better way so that I can have a better outcome and different things like that. Because with me, you know, just growing my relationship with God, getting closer to God, I know that I fall short of his grace and mercy every day. So I try to present myself better and show grace to other people that I would want them to do the same to me. So that's what's been heavy on me with grace.
Thank you. I love that, you know, what you all are saying is kind of connected to each other, because that just goes to show that no matter where you come from, no matter what you're going through in life, grace can still be as impactful, no matter if it's big or small. And Matrice, what I took from you is that you said it depends on where you are in life. And you know, of course, how you handle things, and you want to handle it with grace, and it depends on where you are in life. And I think that will determine the type of grace that is required or that you give. And that will lead us into one of our other questions. Kim, I like how you said that it's the movement and it's how you treat others and the blessings that are attached to it. And Amber, when you were saying that this is like, I wrote that I was starting to write what you said, and then when you went into this sentence, I was like, nope, this is what sticks out to me. Handling things in a better way to get better. And I think that kind of is like the whole overarching like thing of grace, being able to do it in a better way to get better. And so I really like when you said that. So that leads me into my second question. So is grace easier for you? And we'll go backwards. We'll go to Amber, to Kim, and to Matrice. Is grace easier for you to give to others or to yourself? So we'll start with Amber.
Whew. Where I am now, in this moment, sitting right here on this Zoom with all of you wonderful people, grace is easier for me to give to others. It was a point in time where I struggled with that, to be honest. I would be like, well, I just feel like people doing me wrong, and I just focus on myself. But I feel like now it's easier for me to give to others with where I'm growing mentally, where I'm moving spiritually. I feel like it's easier for me to give to others. You know, give the love that Jesus gave. That's what I'm on right now.
I love it. I love it. What you got, Kim? Is it easier for you to give it to others or give it to yourself?
I would have to agree with Matrice. It's easier to give to others. I've been through so much, and I'm going to go into this at the Women That Win. You know, I've lost so many people, but I just lost the matriarch of our family, which was resisting my help. Lord knows that I could help her. You know, I'm pretty much the only qualified financial person in our family, but she refused my help, and she was saying a lot of mean things to me. People wanted to blame it on dementia, but no, she knew what she was saying, because they gave her the mentality test and she knew what she was saying. She was saying a lot of hurtful things. So my cousin was telling me, Kim, you should leave. That's mental abuse. You don't deserve this, and so on and so forth. But then my pastor was like, don't leave. Stay with it, stick with it. So I had to be strong, and I had to rise above it, because that's my mom's mom, you know, and I you guys know I rock for my mom, even though she's dead and gone. That is my life. So I stuck with it, because my mom would have done it as well. So I gave my grandma grace, but at the end, I held her hand and I told her, I forgive you. And I hope that anything you ever thought I did wrong to you or disappointed you, forgive me. So that I had to release that so that I can go on with my life and just forgiving people. But I beat myself up a lot, I'm my worst critic. Like I'm doing my hair and I'm like, oh my God, getting ready for the weekend. So I'm my worst critic. I have to learn to give myself grace a little more than I do and stop being so hard on myself. But it's easier for me to give to others than it is to myself. So I would agree.
Okay, thank
Yep.
you.
You're
And
welcome.
your strength through that is so commendable. So, all right, Matrice, is it easier for you to give it to others, or are you to give it
Listen,
to
Kim,
yourself?
don't you start with these tears, honey, because
I won't.
I just can't today.
Let's save it for the
I
weekend.
but now, giving it back to Kim and Amber, it's similar. And I'm gonna be honest and say it's not always easy for me to give other people grace. And being inside of the stage that I'm at right now, it was like perfect timing because a lot of things was happening. And I felt like, oh, this is a test. And I'll just be like, you know what, F it. And then I'll pray the next day and I'll be like, and I think it's just the Holy Spirit, like you up here asking God for all this stuff, but you ain't forgave this person for this. You ain't did this. And then I'll be like, okay, God, all right. So then within that same time frame, my mentor Joe told me, he said, as long as you please God. As long as you please God. Cause I was battling like, oh, do I need this friendship? I forgave this person, do I still need to be friends with them even though I forgave them? Do I still need to be there for him or her even though they did me wrong? And Joe was like, as long as you please God in that situation, you handle that situation the way Jesus would handle it. And if that person showed like no grace or forgiveness or try to reconcile the situation, you please God, let it go. So that was my struggle with giving people grace. I didn't know, like, how they say forgive and forget? And it's like, yeah, I forgave and forgot, but do I gotta still hang around you? Do I still gotta help you if you call on me? And so that was kind of like, my struggle with giving other people grace. But I got it together because I was like, I got too much stuff I got to ask for that I'm asking God for. So
Right.
I gotta give grace and keep it going.
I love that. As long as you please God, I think that's pretty powerful, and I can tell like that resonated with people. You got some praying hands in the comment sections. You got some fires. Kim, I like when you said that it is easier to give others grace, but then you'll beat yourself up for it. Not that I like it, but I like that you were transparent about it. And Amber, you were saying that it is definitely easier for you to give it to others in the space that you're in. And so that leads me to my next question. Why is it? So it's a two-part question. Why is it so hard for us to give ourselves grace when we mess up or when we, because I know I'm with you, Matrice. Sometimes I'm sitting there and I'm like, I'm gonna give this person grace, but at what point is it just like enough is enough? So I get it. So why do you think it's, and I'll start with Kim, and then I'll go to Matrice and I'll go to Amber. So Kim, Matrice, Amber. Why do you think it's so hard for us to give ourselves grace in certain situations? But the other part of that question is, do you think that it is harder for you because you are a female? Because the reason why I said that is because I was listening to a podcast, and it was a co-ed podcast. And they were saying, the guys were like, well, they okay, people mess up, move on. All right. You're not gonna keep doing it, but all right, you messed up, you move on, you apologize, all right. Then some of the women were like, but I don't know if I can, because I expect this of myself. So it's like, all right, I messed up again. I got some people count on me. So it seems like the men on that podcast were like, yeah, I messed up, or yeah, I did wrong, or okay, they did me wrong. All right, cool. I admit it. All right, let's move past it. And then women on there were really harping on it. And so it seems as if men were easier to give themselves grace when they messed up or when something didn't go right, but the women seem to beat themselves up. So do you think that, well, one, why is it harder for you to give yourself grace? And then two, do you think it has anything to do with us being females?
Awesome. That's a very good question. I believe that it's harder for us to give ourselves grace. It actually depends on, to me, I'm just going to say for me personally, it depends on where you were born or when you were born. Like, I'm the eldest child, so I could not be, I'm responsible for everybody in my family. I'll just put it like that. So I had to make sure everybody's food was together, that everybody was perfect. So all the responsibility was put on me. So I feel like when I fail others, right? So that is where I don't give myself grace, because it's more than about me. It's about, now that I'm in the leadership position and I'm helping so many people in my community, I don't have time for error, right? Because when I mess up, when I fail, I'm letting thousands of people down. So that's why I don't give myself grace. And as far as us being a woman, I don't think that has anything to do with it. It has to do with the personal and self-development. Because once you start to love yourself, once you start to accept those quote unquote failures, because they're not failures, they're just lessons. Okay, I had to learn that they're not losses, they're lessons. So once you start to develop that mindset and know that towards each well, I don't even like saying that word anymore. So that goes to show that I am working on my personal and self-development. So you just learn to take those losses as lessons. So that way you can give yourself more grace. You don't get depressed. You don't beat yourself up, and you just keep on pushing and keep on going, because guess what? We are learning and we are failing forward. So that's how you can learn to give yourself grace.
Okay, thank you. I
You're
appreciate
welcome.
that. Matrice? What you
So,
think?
so I think for me, it was hard for me to give myself grace at times, because you know how they say women have an intuition, and sometimes we just know better. We know we shouldn't have did it. We know we shouldn't have made this decision, and we did it anyway. And so I'll sit there and kick myself in the butt because my choices affect my children. And that has happened to me recently, to where it was like super duper, hard for me to get through something. I'm like, this is my fault. Like, you in this situation because of you. Your kids in this situation because of you. And so recently, I just gave myself grace for that. I just gave myself grace. And like, I'm kind of conflicted, do women, is it harder for women to get themselves grace than men? Because I feel like women, we're just providers and protectors, and not taking anything away from men. We just do stuff automatically that makes us like these superheroes. So when we're not the superhero, we're a little bit harder on ourselves. And I just feel like, just from experience with other women, when I meet younger women and I try to get them to learn from my mistakes, because they're in the same situation, like, oh, I did this and I can't come back from this and I can't come back from that. And I'm like, look, I came back from it. So you can too. But I do feel like, women, we're just relentless. At the same time, we hold ourselves super accountable, and we're just super hard on ourselves sometimes.
Yeah, I agree with that. I do agree with that. And the chats and Facebook going off, they got the heart emojis going, and what's the one with the one where they're holding the heart? Is that like compassion or care? The care was
Love.
going off, and So they're saying talk about it. Yeah, they're feeling you. Kim, somebody put that is Queen Kim Connor over there. So they're feeling you. And somebody put over here in the comments and on Zoom, it is harder. No, it is, because as Kim said, we are our worst critics and we hold ourselves accountable and feel we don't forgive ourselves. We beat ourselves up and hold it inside, and it's buried deep inside. So they're feeling you. And I'm trying to go back and forth between the two, because I got some people that was like, you missed my question on Facebook, but they're feeling y'all. So Amber, what do you think?
So I feel that it's kind of hard myself very times because, okay, I'm trying to try that. It seems like I'm supposed to have it all together, and all the time I don't. Even though I'm strong, I'm always, when you need me, I'm there. It's hard because everybody's looking at me to have it all together. They can't figure something out. They come to me. And it's like, y'all don't even know I'm falling apart over here. But I still have to be strong for everybody else. And that's how hard for me to grace. It's easier to give others grace. And when it pertains to, is it harder for me being a woman versus if I were a man? I have a twin brother, right? And there are things that my brother was allowed to do, get away with, that I wasn't allowed to get away with. My cousins who are boys who are my age were allowed to get away with. They come home with a D or an F. Oh, you'll do better next time. I come home with a D or F, and it's, what's wrong with you? You know better than that. And it's like, why is all this pressure put on me, but not them? So I feel like it's a yes and no when it comes to being a woman, because they just assume women are smarter. So you should be able to do these things correctly. You should not be failing. You should not be going through these things. I expect that from him. And that's what I've heard a lot. So I think that it does in certain instances have to do with me being a woman, for it being harder for me to give myself grace. Because if we're being honest, it's a lot of men that wouldn't give women grace for the same things that they would do. If a woman did, it would fall apart. It'd be the end of the world. So I think it's both. But yeah.
I like that you said that you think based upon the situation that will make it harder for a woman, depending upon what's happening. And it's funny that you say that, because when I was listening to that podcast and they were giving different scenarios of giving grace, and I was like, okay, I wouldn't have a problem here. Oh, I know I would like give this person grace over here, but I would be beating myself up. And I literally, after that podcast, I was like, yeah, I think as a woman, situationally, we have a hard time giving grace. But, and for you to say that, that's crazy, because we literally, like I said, the exact same thing. I think it depends on the situation. But when you made the comment about, boys being held at a different standard than girls, people were throwing the bullseye, the hearts, you preaching girls. So I think a lot of times that just goes to show how we were raised and that expectation. And Kim mentioned her being the eldest. But that also goes to show that even if you weren't the eldest, sometimes the expectation of the females in the families are different from the expectation in the males of the families. And that also goes back to, past programming. So like Amber, when you made the comment of, oh yeah, you made a D, okay, you need to do better next time. That right there showed the boys, all right, I'm giving you grace for this mess up that you just did. So the boys were able to see grace given to them. So maybe in those situations, that's why it may have been easier for them to give grace or be like, all right, I made a D, I'll take another test. But then when it came to you, it was like, you did what? So I think that was very powerful. And I don't even know if you really meant for it to be like that powerful, but I think that's it. That shows that past programming. And I completely understand it, because when I was coming up, not only did I not want to bring home certain grades? Like I would set a standard for myself. I'm like, I refuse to get below this grade. And if I got below it, I beat myself up. And I think it's because the expectation was, this is not what you're going to bring home. And so let's say if the expectation was, okay, you can bring home a B, but in my head, I was like, no, I'm not. Like, I will not go below a B plus. Like, I even set the bar higher than what their expectation was. And I think that just goes to show that past programming of how we are raised and how we are shown grace is given to other people so easily, and also to certain people so easily. So I think that was very, very profound. And thank you so much for sharing that. So with that being said, there was a question on that podcast, and when they asked it, I was like, oh, I have to ask this question. My question is there a limit on grace? And if you say yes, why? If you say no, why? Is there a limit on grace? And to kind of go into that, to give you context, the question was based upon a scenario, but it was like, is there a limit on who you give grace to? Is there a limit on how many times you give a person grace? Is there a limit to, okay, I'll give you grace in this situation, but only this much? I'm like, I'm not going to give you, like if the D, you brought home a D, all right, I'll give you grace that, okay, you made a D, maybe your punishment will be this, but don't bring it home anymore. Or like, there's like only so much grace I'm going to give you in certain situations, and in other situations, I'll give you more grace. Or is there a limit? Like I've given you grace 3 times now, different situations. I'm done with grace. Like, is there a limit on grace? And if you feel like there is a limit on grace, tell me why or why not. So I'll go back on the screen this way, how I see you. And Matrice, you're first. Is there a limit on grace? If so, why? If not, why not?
Heck yeah, it's a limit on grace, because you have to protect your own mental space and your own self and your own spirit. And depending on the situation, like Amber couldn't bring home a D. And I may say, well, if Amber brought home a D, all right, you better get an A this time, I'm gonna give you grace this time. But if it's like, a person not trying to change and you giving them grace so many times, they're not trying to help themselves, or it's messing with your spirit. It's changing how you normally are. It's messing with your peace. Oh, it's time to cut your ways with them. And like I said, just as long as you please God, even if it's a disrespect, you know how they say they playing in your face, that's the new word. And you may just want to be like, oh, be this, be that, but it's like, no, I'm gonna just part ways with you, and at the same time, please God, because I'm not gonna do you like you did me. So it's definitely a limit on grace, because you'll lose your mind trying to continue to give people grace, and they don't even get a self grace.
I think some people felt you. Somebody was like, oh my God, what a question. And they're saying, yeah, they agree. So Kim, is there a limit on grace?
There definitely is. I have to agree with Matrice. I have so many stories. I don't know where to begin, but there's definitely a time to stop the grace, because you do have to protect your energy. You do want to remain positive. That would be like knowing somebody molested a child, but you keep putting that child in their presence. You know what I'm saying? How much pain do you have to endure in order for you to know that I love you? You know I love you. So I'll be over here when you're ready to treat me better. And then again, we have to set boundaries for ourselves. You have to treat people how to love you. Because if you don't stand for anything, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. So you just have to treat people how to love you and demand your respect. And if with that being said, if that means my presence will be absent, it is what it is. So no more grace on that side from me. And I have a reason for it. I have a story for it, but that's a good question.
All right. I thank you. All right. So we got 2 yeses. Amber, what you say?
Oof. So God tells me, because he has so much grace for me, it's never ending, right? I'm not God. I try to strive to be righteous, but I am not God. And up until a certain point, especially depending on what's going on with the situation with that particular person, it could be a one and done, like, hey, love you from way over here. But that's just something that I would just retreat, pray for that person, love them from afar. But it's hard to just continuously give grace if someone's constantly hurting you, or, you know, just doing anything. It could be someone in your family, it could be a friend. Grace isn't supposed to have a limit, but we're human. We are women. We are emotional people. And whew, I love everybody, but you running a little empty on grace.
I love the fact that y'all are so honest and transparent, because when they asked that question, I'm not gonna lie, I was like, oh, now I know in the Bible they talk about forgiveness and you know, and this leads to the next question, and grace, and I was like, I don't know if I can continue to, you know, I said it. And I don't know, Amber, I don't know if you was watching that podcast of me, but we here again. I literally told my car speakers, like it was talking to me. I said, look, I know they say be like God, but in some situations, you got to be like God, God like, think like God, forgive like God, but in some situations, it's just gonna be like, all right, the God in me is in me, but it's saying that this is cutting it off. And as I'm talking to my car speakers, the lady on the podcast says, in the Bible, it does tell us to continue, and this is going to my next question. In the Bible, it does tell us that, you know, when a person, the scripture, lost my train of thought, is when, how many times will they sin against me, and do I have to forgive them? And she quoted the scripture, and she said, and this takes me to my next question, before I give you 100% of what she says that this is why people who are spiritual or religious believers, or whatever you're going to call it, they get it confused. Giving grace is not the same as forgiveness. And that was, she said, and that's my answer. And I was like, wow, that is so true. She said that Christians get giving grace and forgiveness confused. She said they are two different things. Because I can forgive you for what you do, but that doesn't mean I have to continue to give grace. And she said the reason why there's a difference is if you continue to give grace, you allow somebody to abuse and use you. She said, but I can forgive you without being abused and used. And I was like, because for me, I did attach grace and forgiveness. And so when she said that grace, if you continue to give grace, you're going to continue to be open for abuse and being used from that particular person. Because she said that she was a person that was married for 15 years. Her husband continued to cheat on her. And she said she continued to give him grace, and she continued to forgive him for all the different instances that he cheated. And she said, so she made it up in her mind that she cut off her grace. I'm not giving you any more grace for all the time that you're cheating on me. She said something happened that really bad happened, because he denied it, and she found out he was cheating on her because she had to go to the doctor, and she found some stuff was going on. And she said at that point, she said, I forgave him for all the times he's hurt me. I forgave him for why I had to go to the doctor. I forgave him because I'm supposed to forgive him, and I can't continue to hold on to that. But my grace is done. And she said that was the point that she filed for divorce. She forgave him, but she cut off her grace. So the question is, in your opinion, ladies, is there a difference in grace and forgiveness? Amber, what you think?
So I was one of those people, until I started to read more and understand more, that would confuse grace and forgiveness. I would let people, they'll do something I felt was wrong to me or hurtful to me. Then I go, okay, I forgive you. And then still allowed them back into my presence, still allowed them back into my space, and gave them other opportunities to continue to do what I already told them hurt me, until I learned that grace and forgiveness weren't the same thing. Like, I can forgive you and not mess with you. I ain't got to talk about you. I ain't going to be weird to you, just high and by, cordial. But I was one of those people that used to confuse the two. There is a huge, huge difference between forgiveness and grace. And the queens is dropping the same scripture that I was thinking about in Matthew 18:21 and 22. There's a huge difference in grace and forgiveness. Because you somebody and not deal with them. Forgive someone and not allow them an opportunity to show you why you shouldn't have them grace in the first place. So yes, there's a big difference. I used to confuse you. I don't confuse it no more.
I know, man, what? Okay, Matrice, is there a difference?
Absolutely, it's a difference. I think as we grow and, even age in life, we always battle like the two, because, when you were younger, you will have fights, with friends and stuff like that. And y'all will be friends again. And then you'll grow up and you'll see like they'll do little things and say little things. And then you get older, you'll be like, this girl ain't my friend. And she don't really rock with me like I think she do. So we kind of correlate history with, like grace, forgiveness and stuff like that. So it's like as you get older, and especially as you, get closer to God, you'll start to see that, you need to just forgive and move forward. Like, don't talk about it. Don't talk about them. Just let it go. And for me, because I'm a super forgiving person, and I'm one of them people, because it's this quote that I see a lot on social media, and it say, give your friends another chance like you forgive that man. And that just always sticks out to me. So when somebody do something to me or whatever the case may be, but first I'll say, like, what did I do to that person? I apologize for it. And then I'll say, I forgave this guy all this time, these many chances. I should give the person the same chance. But once I give that same chance and you do something else, it's like, okay, that's when protecting your space and your peace and your energy and those boundaries that Kim was talking about kick in. I love you. I just love you across the street. And I've done this to family, to friends, recently to like super close friends that I've known since I was a kid. And I still pray for them, but it's like we're not friends. And maybe, it's not like super bad, but you just grow apart from people. People change. And so it's like I used to take it like to heart. Like, oh, I've been knowing you all since, you watched my baby when they was little. It's like, nope, it's just time to just forgive, and just let it go.
Okay. Kim, is there?
Awesome. Yep, I never had to think about this, but now that I do, I'm going to put it like this, Mrs. McCambry. Grace to me is like a pass, like you step on my shoe and I'm not going to get all belligerent or anything like that. So to me, grace is a pass, things I'm going to let you pass with that, or you bumped into my car. That's a pass. It was an accident. You may not know about it. Forgiveness to me is for me, not the other person. So grace is for the other person. Forgiveness is for me, because the opposite of forgiveness would be hate to me, right? So that is toxic. That will eat you on the inside. I've had to forgive a lot of people. My daughter has had to forgive a lot of people. We show up at people's last days and they're like, if they did that to me, I wouldn't be here. My daughter had to say to somebody, and I don't want to go too deep because I'll get to crying. She had to say, this is not for them. This is for me, so that I can go on with living my life. Let them take that to the grave with them, but I'm not taking it with me. I forgive them. So that is my theory of grace and forgiveness.
Perfectly said. I love it. I love it. All right. So we're going to wrap up here shortly, but I have 2 more questions. And we kind of touched on it earlier. And I'll start with Amber because she kind of brought it up when she gave her example of the grades. Is grace something that's taught, or is it something that just comes natural? What do you think? So we'll go Amber, we'll go Kim, and then Matrice. Amber, is grace something taught, or does it just come natural?
60-40, taught 60, because I've seen my mom, how she's interacted with people and giving grace. I've seen my aunts, my grandmother, and just people around me, other women around me, and how they've interacted and given grace to people who have done things to them. And me growing up, seeing that, that's how I started to behave. That's what I would accept things that I shouldn't have and just give chance after chance after chance. And that's because I've seen my mom give chance after chance after chance. I've seen my grandmother give chance after chance after chance. So it's definitely both. I would say that it is more taught because we are products of our environment. Like if you grow up and you see your grandmother cut part of the ham off before she put it in the pan and put it in the oven, you don't know why you do it. My grandma did it. So that's why I feel like it's taught, because we're reared and guided by the women and just the people in our lives in general. So I would say mostly taught, but it's also something that you learn, because as you get older, you have to learn how to respect yourself and learn that always giving grace, you can start to abuse yourself by giving so much grace to people, especially when it's not reciprocated and they keep disrespecting the grace that you're given. So, but I would say definitely both, more so taught, but definitely both.
Okay. Did I say Kim next? I can't remember. I'm reading the comments and getting thrown off. We'll go Kim. Kim next. What do you think? Taught? I'm going to do this because Amber made a good point. Is it taught? Is it natural, or both?
I do believe that it's both, but it also depends on what you're watering the most. Yeah, all of my family were drug addicts. You see what I'm saying? And then I even tried it thinking, oh, they might like me if I try it this way, right? So things are pretty much learned. I would say they're learned. So I had to learn to change my ways and learn to change my habits. You see what I'm saying? So me personally, I would definitely say it's learned. Everything in life is learned. We all have different seeds on the inside of us. It depends on what you're watering the most. And that comes from a learned behavior. I don't give a darn where you come from. It's about where you're at right now. So that is a learned behavior, in my opinion.
Okay, thank you. Matrice, what do you think?
I agree with both of them. I think that it's both. It's experience and it's, being taught, especially my mom being a single mom, my grandma being a single grandmother. I've watched them, give people grace when they shouldn't have. And just my own experience when people, so here's an example, and this is not going to be long. I was going on a job interview. It was like an hour away. I left like 2 hours early, but it was a lot of traffic. And I had to be there at like 10 o'clock. It was a trucking industry, just the whole, where I was. It was just a lot of trucks and stuff. And it was one way this way, one way the other way. And I got behind the truck, and because it was like a hill, he was going super slow. And I was 5 minutes late. And this lady turned me away from this job, from the interview. And I was just like, this is a trucking industry and it's a hill, and I know she's experienced that working there. And I just felt like, I should have been given some grace. Like, because I know that I would have been on time had I been behind that truck and it wasn't a lot of traffic. But still, it was just like things that you can't control, and you have to look at it when it comes to other people. If it's out of their control, especially, give them grace. So I think just my experience just coming up and, people not giving me grace is what made me, it made me stupid sometimes. Honestly, it made me stupid, but it also made me give others grace easily.
Okay, I like that. So, when it comes to, and so I feel like we're all pretty much on the same page when it comes to it's both. I think for me, I agree with it being both, but how you do it, I think that is like pretty much like what you all were saying is based upon the situation, how you do it, how you give it, how much you give, and I've been in situations where it's like begrudgingly giving, okay, go ahead, so I think it just depends on the situation. So I want to read this quote. I want to read this comment. Somebody said, First Lady, these questions are everything. And these answers, yes, queens. And then over here on Facebook, people are talking about the questions and y'all's answers. And I think that the reason why, and I do sit down and really, figure out what questions I want to ask. But I think that the reason why these responses are the way they are is because y'all are being honest and transparent. How many times have you gotten on something and listening on something and it seems like they're always trying to be perfect? They're not saying, okay, well, yeah, sometimes I don't want to get it. And I think that that's what's resonating with people that are joining in is that y'all are being, what did it say? Y'all being raw, y'all being real, so I appreciate that. And I thank y'all for being that way. But I think this one might be a little hard to do because I asked myself this question and it was hard because I wanted to answer it with one word because you have to give me one word. But when I answered it with one word, it was like I wanted to explain why. So I'm going to see if you can do it. I only want one word, and it's the first word that comes to your mind. One word that describes grace to you, and it can be how it makes you feel. It can be the importance of it, whatever it is. When you think of the word grace, what is the first and one word? Like, don't put no hyphens in there. One word when you think of the word grace. Can you tell me what that one word is? But I'm gonna let you explain to me why. So what does grace mean to you? What does it make you feel? What does it do for you? What is the one word that can describe all of that? And tell me why. Matrice, one word and tell me why.
I would say grace to me is love. And the reason why is because most of the time when we have to give grace, it be for a loved one, and it be the hardest because we like, oh, you love me and I expect better from you because you're supposed to love me. So I think that will be, my word, because we always have to give loved ones grace.
Oh, good word. I don't know if you saw my face, but I was like, oh, that's a good word. Love. Kim, one word.
My one word is control. The reason I say control is, remember when I explained it's about the movement, and you're able to control your emotions, control your feelings, control however you think you ought to react. It's not about you, it's about the other person and how you're serving them. So you're in control of that grace.
Another good one. Control. Amber, what you got?
Progression. And I say progression because for us to give grace, it's going to take growth within us, within ourselves, to be able to do that. like we just discussed, it's easier for us to give it than to receive it, right? We all have, some people, well, Matrice said it was difficult for her to give it, but it was easier for her to give it to herself. So I say progression because mentally we all have to get to a certain space where we know when to give it and when to cut it off, when to give it and when to, let somebody know, like, I love you, but I can't rock with you like that. Whatever the case may be, it's always going to be progression because there's different stages of the way you're going to be given grace and how you give that grace as well. So it's always going to be changing. It's always going to be progressing. Because I love my son, but if I tell him to pick up them socks off the floor one more time, you got no more grace, son. You got no more grace. So for me, progression.
I love it. And I'm sitting here in awe because progression, great word. But I'm in awe because when I asked the question, I was like, oh, second chances. Okay, wait, that's not one word. I was like, okay. And you all just boom, right off the top of your head. So when I sat down, I said, Shanae, one word. And those of you who are tuning in, if you want to drop me in the comments, what does grace, the one word for you, okay? So for me, the first thing that popped in my head, of course, was second chances. That's not one word. The second thing that popped in my head to describe grace was godlike. That's not one word. So I had to sit here and really say, okay, well, what is the one word? And the first thing that popped in my head was peace. So I said, for me, I say peace, because for me to be able to give grace, I'm gonna have to find some type of peace within myself that may either make the situation have peace. So for me, I say peace. Let's see, over in the comments on Facebook, what we got? Favor. Some people said favor, peace, sufficient, kingdom, righteousness, clarity, wisdom, change, forgiveness, patience, God, peace, compassion. Yeah, oh, they're unmeasurable. Hey, great word. So, unmerited growth. So y'all doing better than me. Y'all came up with them one words real fast. But I think for me, grace is one of those things that it's easy to give out than it is to give to myself, because like Kim said, we are our worst critic. I am hard on myself. And then in addition to being hard, I'm competitive. So, that kind of goes along those lines of making it hard. But I want to give 4 things that we can do to show ourselves more grace. And these are 4 things that were given to me because I'm a big advocate of therapy and counseling, women empowerment, all that stuff. And so one of the things on my journey was I wasn't giving myself grace for a lot of different things. And that within itself can hold you back on your journey of progressing to where it is that you want to go. Or going after your goals and dreams, or even just feeling good about yourself. And so the 4 things that I want to go over. Somebody said that, like wisdom. The 4 things I want to give you is you got to speak kindly to yourself. And I will admit that was one of the ones that I did have a hard time with, because I think Matrice, I think you said it, when things would happen, I'm like, now you know better. Now I am one of those people that I will talk to myself and I will answer myself. I will have a whole conversation with myself. Shanae, why you do that? I don't know. You know better. I do know better. So I had that exchange with myself. And so I didn't speak kindly to myself. So the first thing is to speak kindly to yourself. And let me give you some examples. I hear people say all the time, I'm so stupid. And sometimes it's just something that you're like, I'm so stupid. I cannot believe I did that. And I'm guilty of doing that. I'm so stupid. How did I leave my wallet at home? It's just something that, just rolls off your tongue. But words are so powerful. And so they were saying, instead of saying, I'm so stupid, start saying things like, I can work on that. Not, I need to work. I can work on that because that's something that I can do. So I'm so stupid. No, I can work on that. I forgot my purse. I've got to work on not leaving my purse at home. I'm so lazy. Instead of saying I'm lazy, say I can work harder, or I will work harder. So don't call yourself lazy. Instead of saying I'm a failure, just say that I can try again. It didn't work out, but I can try again. And for me, that was real powerful, because you saying I can try again sets yourself up to not stop and not quit. So instead of saying I'm a failure, start saying that, okay, I need to try this again, or I can try again. And then I don't have what it takes. I don't have what it takes. I don't have what's needed. Whatever that phrase is that you say a lot that I don't have, I want you to say that, let's just say I don't have the best car. I don't have the best reliable car. So instead of saying, well, I don't have a car, I don't have a reliable car, we need to say, well, I have everything that I need, because I do have something that can get me where I need to go. Because some people don't even have a car. And I know that was something big, because in my circle, there was one of our associates, I wouldn't say friend, because I knew her through my friends. She would always make comments about everybody's car in our circle. And she would just say how her car was just, oh, this rinky-dink car. And she had a really nice car, but she compared her car to our cars. And because she felt it wasn't on the level of our cars, she would say that she had a rinky-dink car. But there is somebody out here in this world that would have given their last dollar to drive her car. And her car was a nice car. Like, it was a really, really nice car. So her not talking kindly to herself, the fact that she has a really nice car, I'm pretty sure that messed with her. So we have got to start speaking more kindly to ourselves. So that last example I gave leads me into number 2. We have got to stop comparing ourselves to others. And I know that for me, this is another hard one, because like I said, I am very competitive. But when we compare ourselves to others, that also affects how we talk to ourselves. That also affects how much grace we will give to ourselves. So that will limit our grace if we even give it to ourselves. But comparing ourselves to others, I want to take it a step further. And I want to take it to the step of saying, comparing ourselves to our past self. And sometimes we compete with our past, and sometimes we allow our past to hold us down. So if you made a mistake in the past and you did it again, and you're like, oh my gosh, here I go, I'm just that same person from the past. But no, learn from that. Instead of comparing yourself to the person that you had in the past, then you need to learn from the person that you were in the past. So we can learn from who we were in the past. We can use that to propel us forward. We can compete with that person, say, I want to compete with who I was, but don't compare yourself. You can look at your growth. There's a difference of looking at your growth and comparing yourself. But also, we got to figure out what is making us so unhappy that we're like consistently doing that. Okay, well, I don't have the house that this person has, so I must be inadequate. I don't have the job that this person has. This person's gotten 2 pay increases on their job. I've only gotten 1, so I must be inadequate. No. Well, what is it that they're doing? Learn from them. Don't compare yourself to them. Learn from them and step up. Also, number 3, we got to celebrate ourselves. We got to celebrate ourselves. There's a quote that, and I love quotes. There was a quote that I saw that says, to not celebrate ourselves is not to enjoy the journey. To not celebrate ourselves is to not enjoy the journey. So for those people who are English majors, yes, that was a double negative. I get it, but it was a great quote. To not celebrate ourselves is to not enjoy the journey. You have got to find reasons to celebrate yourself on your journey to wherever it is that you want to get to. You got to take the small and not just the big, because the more you celebrate yourselves for your wins, the more you're going to keep going, the more you're going to give yourself grace when you do stumble. So we have got to be able to celebrate ourselves more. And last but not least, we've got to manage our expectations. And this was another one, because for me, I'm competitive. I do set high expectations. I am hard on myself. I expect myself to be able to perform at certain levels. And if I can be honest, when I started my blog, it took me 7 years to even put my first blog out, because I was like, it has got to be perfect. It has got to be perfect. Okay, I recorded this video. Okay, I fumbled my words. All right, I'm going to start all over. And sometimes it would take me like so many different takes to even do a recording. Or if I was typing something and I had a typo, I would like, I made one typo, I would start all the way over. I was striving for so much perfection that I wasn't even able to get out of my own way. And it took me 7 years, because what happened is, because I focused on so many mistakes I was making, because I had all that perfection expectation of myself, then I began to say, nobody wants to hear, oh, look at this, I can't even get this right. Nobody wants to hear what I got to say. And then I put it off to the side. We have got to be able to manage our expectations. Yes, we want to be able to be our best self, but manage what that is. Like, don't strive for perfection, strive for progression. And that's a big difference. So I hope those 4 things were able to help you. If you are battling with giving yourself grace, please know and understand that grace is not a one-stop shop. It is a journey. It is something that you're going to have to continuously work on. Giving grace, we see here tonight that sometimes giving grace is easier to give it to other people because of how we were raised. But also give ourselves grace. You know, we're not perfect. We are human. We strive to be godlike. But because of that, we're going to make mistakes. So give ourselves grace. We are all works in progress. Okay. So I hope you enjoyed it. This is grace. We've done hope, we've done perseverance, we've done grace. We have one more coming up, and I'm gonna let the cat out of the bag before it's time to come up. The one on next Wednesday, which is going to be after our Women That Win this weekend. I hope y'all are ready. If you're attending, I hope you bring your tissues, because I know that there's going to be some breakthroughs, because I am hearing stories of people getting hit left and right with things, you know, that are trying to stop them, but there's nothing that's going to stop what's going to happen this weekend. We got blessings coming. We got growth coming. But next week, I hope you're ready, because next week we're ending Winning Women Wednesday with the word topic of resilience. So I hope you're going to join us next Wednesday. I thank you so much, Miss Matrice. I thank you so much, Miss Kim. I thank you so much, Miss Amber. It was so great hearing from you. Joe did not lie. You are that girl. So I appreciate you all for joining us. I hope to see you next Wednesday. And please, please, please practice giving yourselves more grace. Thanks for joining me. Good night, everybody.